Hello, I am Amelia, and I'm a designer baby expert, and that's what I'm here today to talk about. So, if I told you you could create your dream child by choosing their hair color, eye color, height, and intelligence, would you? If I told you that through a similar process, you could create a child with reduced risks of developing certain genetic disorders and diseases, would you? Luckily, you can do this through designing your own designer baby. There remains significant controversy around the use of designer babies. Is it worth the cost? Is it ethical to utilize an unnatural process that is so notoriously not natural? Where can we draw the line for the use of designer babies in our society? Specifically, designer babies are babies that originated from embryos, which are created by an in vitro fertilization or IVF. These babies are selected because of the presence or absence of particular genes. Essentially, this baby is created by genetic interventions into pre-implementation embryos in the attempt to influence the traits of said children. Today, majority of the designer babies are created with an aim to prevent inheriting genetic defects through the selection of a disease-free embryo by pre-implementation genetic diagnosis. Today we are about to hear from Dr. O'Connor, a doctor who specializes in genome editing and in vitro fertilization. We received permission from both Dr. O'Connor and one of her patients, Jeremy, to enter her office and listen in on their discussion today. Jeremy and his wife are hoping to have a baby soon, but they first want to explore the option of designer babies. He chose to go on to one of the most recognized genome editing doctors in Louisiana, so we will hear from her now.
Welcome to my office, Jeremy. I hear that you and your wife are considering having a designer baby. Is that right?
Yes, we've been actually almost talking about it, but I'm still unclear on actually what that means. I get to choose my child's eye and also hair color, right? And I also want to make sure my daughter or like or son likes playing football. Just like me.
Well, Jeremy, it's a bit more complex than that. I typically only feel comfortable performing it if your intention is to have a disease-free embryo. I don't feel that it's ethical to perform IVF with the intent of physically choosing the characteristics of your child. I won't do it to make your child like football, be taller, have a certain hair color, etc. It just doesn't feel right to me. I will, however, use IVF to create a different type of designer baby, if you'd like to hear more about that.
Wait, what's with that? IVF.
Great question. So there's quite the notorious term in the medical field called in vitro fertilization, commonly referred to as IVF. In simple terms, IVF is something that helps women become pregnant when they are having a difficult time doing so. The eggs are removed from the woman and the sperm is collected from her male partner. Scientists will combine these samples and put the embryo back into the woman's uterus, allowing her to become pregnant.
Okay, why might someone actually I'm gonna do this? Get like one of these um 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 designer my babies.
Well, there are multiple reasons. A more recent idea that I was explaining to you a bit earlier is quite literally to create your ideal child. You can choose their hair color, eye color, and other physical characteristics like height. You also have the ability to influence some emotional characteristics like intelligence or friendliness. In my practice, designer babies are created through in vitro fertilization because it can help us avoid certain genetic defects. We implant embryos into the uterus that aim to create disease-free babies. We can modify certain genes to lower certain disease risks.
I don't I don't quite understand how you could actually only give someone an actual embryo that is quote um, disease what free.
There There are a couple of ways. In my practice, we typically use pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD. The name is actually quite self-explanatory, just what it sounds like. Pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. We diagnose genetic defects and potential disease prior to implanting the embryo into the uterus. We recently started using an alternate technology called CRISPR genetic engineering, where we alter specific fragments of the DNA or the genome to notice and manipulate defects in genetic material. CRISPR is the group of these DNA fragments that we will genetically engineer. CRISPR genetic engineering works by the entrance of Cas9 and gRNA into the opening of a specific cell. Once doing this, we're able to change the genome by adding in new genes or getting rid of old ones that appear to be defective. Does that make sense?
Seems a bit complicated, but yeah, that makes sense. What types of um um mm, um mm, diseases what can be pre prevented through the creation of um 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 designer babies.
Different types of mitochondrial diseases can be caught and prevented before performing the IVF process. We can prevent diseases like cystic fibrosis or Tay-Sachs disease.
My family has a history of cystic um um fibrosis. It sounds like this might be a good option for my um, um, wife and I. If you had to actually um, um, convince me in a couple sentences why I should create a design a designer baby to actually reduce disease risk. What would you let's say?
The list could go on. First of all, like I emphasized earlier, it can help us avoid the development of several types of diseases, some mitochondrial and some genetic. It has the potential to increase lifespan. Also, it can help reduce the chance of your child developing certain disorders or diseases that run in your family.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think you sold me there. Now, what are the um, mm, um, mm, um, disadvantages of using technology to make it close to um, 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 disease free free um, um, embryo.
Well, I've discussed with you the problems of designer babies created to create your ideal child physically and emotionally, which I don't agree with doing. Although my reasoning for doing it is also unnatural, I feel comfortable making the exception because it can aid the safety, health, and potential lifespan of your child. It's important to consider some of the risks associated with these types of screening techniques and diagnosis. When we examine and modify the embryo outside of the uterus, there's always a chance things could go wrong and damage to the embryo can occur. Although I've been doing this type of work for years, sometimes mistakes happen, and some of those mistakes to the embryo might even be entirely out of my control. What we haven't discussed, however, is the cost of creating a designer baby. Much like designer clothes and items, many techniques for producing designer babies are incredibly costly. CRISPR genetic engineering can cost around $20,000, whereas pre-implantation genetic diagnosis can cost around $6,000.
Oh wow. Thank you for the doctor. I'm going back home to back home, and I'll share all this info um 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 with my wife. But I don't think we're sold. Well, thank you.
We will be in touch soon. Have a great day.
Hi everyone, I'm Tess and I am a gene editing advocate. The concept of using CRISPR-Cas9 for human reproduction continues to be debated. Gene editing gives the body the ability to alter cells in the body's immune system to target and destroy cancer cells. This use of gene editing is more universally accepted than utilizing gene editing to alter certain traits in humans. We are generally opposed to the concept of allowing humans to experiment on other humans. Designer babies are created through the dictation of a doctor and of the parents of their child to choose specific traits such as gender, height, and intelligence of the baby. Because this is a new concept, the ability for one to create designer babies is uncommon. The controversy that revolves around this concept mostly lies in the fact that designer babies will be advantageous for wealthier individuals who will be able to afford these experimental services. If wealthier individuals consent to these practices and utilize them, this creates risk for a potential elitist type of genetic class in the future. The babies that are designed will automatically be at an advantage against others whose traits are not altered and improved. Essentially, designer babies give science the power to guide the evolution of the human race, taking power out of the hands of nature. This issue brings us back to the concept of survival of the fittest. And with designer babies, a certain group of individuals will be able to survive and thrive more easily than the other babies who do not have edited genetic traits. Aside from this issue, there is no proof that demonstrates the method that creating designer babies is safe.
Hi, I'm Alexa and I'm also a gene editing expert, so I'm just going to add on to what Tess said a little bit. Scientists do not know if editing of the gene on an existing person or a future person is safe. Generally, designer babies do not regard the globally accepted scientific and ethical standards of our world. In addition to this, a designer baby could have an affected link to its parents. The method would change the principle that the parents of the child should unconditionally love and accept their child for who they are. This essentially changes the nature of what parenting is, and the child could grow up feeling manipulated due to their chosen genetics. The overall viewpoint of this is that genetic modification to prevent disease is ethical, but to change appearance, intelligence, and physicality of a baby is unethical. Our society continues to work towards being tolerant of human difference, and designer babies would obliterate this. Certain individuals and groups' prejudices would be more apparent in the designer babies and populations would change. For example, Chinese and Indian societies prefer boys to girls. So if they were to design a baby, they would most likely favor having a boy over a girl, which would lead to a demographic change, specifically in gender. When genetic screening is used before implanting embryos in a woman, society sees this as ethical. While some believe that designer babies would be better our society, others believe that it would make the lifestyles of the rich and leave everyone else in the dust. If wealthy individuals could make their babies more beautiful, smart, talented, and athletic, and the children of middle-class families, the gap between these children would continue to widen. The unfair advantage challenges all American philosophical ideas of equality.
Thank you for listening to our social, cultural, and ethical concerns about designer babies.